Hello everyone, I'm Sally and welcome to today's Atta webinar. Today I'm joined by Eloise Best, who will be talking to us about Borana Lodge and Conservancy, where they are using tourism to fund conservation. Eloise has lived and worked on Borana Conservancy for the last 5 years, giving her great knowledge of this wonderful part of Kenya. Eloise managed Borana Lodge for 2 years and now she oversees the marketing for both Borana Lodge and the Conservancy. At the end of the webinar, we will take questions. So if you have any either during the webinar or at the end, there's a box on your screen which says Q&A, so you can feel free to type anything in there and I will field those to Eloise at the end. A recording of the webinar will also be sent out to everyone and those will include Eloise's contact details should you have any questions afterwards. So Eloise, over to you.
Thank you. Sally has said I've lived and worked on Borana for the last almost 6 years. And for those who aren't familiar with Borana, it is a 32,000 acre rhino conservation area in northern Kenya, just a few miles north of the equator, in the foothills of Mount Kenya and at an altitude of 6,000 feet, which is around 2,000 meters. We have an arid indigenous forest to the south, so Borana's really well situated for wildlife. The Conservancy was formed in the early 90s when the Dyer family decided to convert the landscape from a cattle and sheep ranch to a conservation area. In 2013, a founding population of 21 black rhino were translocated to Borana from Lewa Wildlife Conservancy, which is our neighbour to the east, and Nakuru National Park in central Kenya. These 21 individuals were left to establish their territories for a year, and we then dropped the fences between Lewa and Borana to form the Lewa-Borana Landscape, which is 92,000 acres and the largest continuous rhino habitat in East Africa. We have currently 107 black rhino and 98 white rhino, with 14 of each born on the landscape this year. We currently also have a pride of 29 lions, and we also have great zebra, reticulated giraffe, all of the big five, and a lot more. So the Lewa-Borana Landscape is an amazing success story with a very unique conservation model. We focus our conservation efforts through a variety of different projects. One of the main things is that we have over 80% local employment rate across the Conservancy, and this includes our anti-poaching team, which is currently made up of 102 men and 13 women, all from communities on our boundaries. The team of our female rangers were employed on Borana Conservancy this January, and they have various jobs across the Conservancy. They act as gatekeepers, radio monitors, they patrol fence lines and do patrols and kind of illegitimate game counts across the Conservancy every day. So this is an amazing step towards equality in an otherwise very male-dominated world of anti-poaching. So we also have set up a Borana mobile clinic, which is run out of the back of a Land Rover. And the clinic treats an average of 160 patients each week. And there's a focus on sexual and reproductive health. Birth can busy the clinic is. In the last 6 months, they have treated over 4,700 patients and traveled almost 6,700 kilometers. And those figures were on Wednesday, so they've probably increased a bit since then. We also have a Borana education support program. So this employs 15 teachers across 7 local schools, both primary and secondary schools. And we also sponsor a total of 46 children in primary and secondary education. And they then can go on and apply for bursaries to university as well. So in 2014, Borana was approached by local community elders for a suggested collaboration to form a viable commercial livestock project. Borana saw a need to support the local communities and help them to establish a system for managing and fattening cattle, and then finding good markets to sell them in. So the Livestock to Market program was formally set up in January 2016 and has been extremely successful. The way it works is that cows are weighed on entry to Borana. They're then ID'd and fattened up over the course of 3 or more months, and then they're sold at an increase in value. So Borana keeps a percentage of their increase in value to cover the costs of herders' salaries, dry fodder, vet bills, and this is really not a commercial enterprise to Borana, so we don't make any money out of it. It's just a way of bringing our local pastoralist communities forwards without drastically changing a culture. It's kind of trying to educate these local communities to see a value in quality over quantity. So to date, there's been 33 million shillings worth of sales, and this has economically benefited over 500 community members. And of course, this program then brought in a couple more people that we then employed locally from our boundaries. So this map just gives you an idea of where everything is on Borana. You can see it in the middle here, numbers 1 and 2 is Borana Lodge and Lengishu, which I'll be talking about next week. And then along the eastern boundary here is Lewa Wildlife Conservancy. So along the river in the north and in the center here are the wildlife. And then numbers 4 and 5 are our headquarters, which is where our rangers are, where our clinic is based, and where our local airstrip is, which is for charter flights. So the majority of the projects which I've mentioned are funded by tourism and also cattle ranching on Borana Conservancy. So one of the main economic drivers on the Conservancy is Borana Lodge. All of the retained earnings generated by Borana Lodge are invested into the core running costs of the Conservancy, and this includes all of the projects which I've mentioned previously. Borana Lodge is a very proud long run destination. So for those who aren't familiar with the long run, I very much encourage you to do a bit of research on them. The vision of the long run and its members is a world where business, nature, and people work together for a sustainable future. So members of the long run are carefully selected because of their commitment to the 4 C's. And the 4 C's are culture, community, conservation, and commerce. So it's a way of kind of sharing knowledge and just increasing the ability for those 4 C's to work together towards a sustainable future in tourism and in conservation. So a bit of history about Borana Lodge. It was built in 1992 and it was one of the original lodges in Kenya. All of the building materials were from the Conservancy or from the site itself. And a lot of the wood that's used in the lodge, so the floorboards in this photograph, for example, were cedar posts which were taken out of the Conservancy from when Borana was taken from being pastured to a conservation area. Sustainability, we've made some really great improvements for this throughout this past year, and the lodge now runs totally on solar energy with very few hours of generator usage, and we also have a full-scale recycling program with very little waste being generated as a result, and the majority of the food consumed at the lodge comes from nearby farms, mostly organic, either by local communities. So the lodge has 4 standalone cottages, cottage 1, 2, 3, and 4 on this map. We also have 2 guide rooms and 2 further family cottages, so we can sleep 18 comfortably. The lodge is designed on a hillside, which gives much more privacy in each room, and it also gives amazing views to each room. So as I said, rooms 1 and 2 up here are standalone. They face towards the sunrise and they're slightly set apart from. Here it has step-free access to the main house and to the pool, and we can drive a car down close to Cottage 3. So if there are any guests with mobility issues, they don't have to climb up and down the hill every day. Room 4 is the closest to the pool. It's got a lovely private secluded veranda. And then family cottage 5 and 6 actually has an extra bedroom. I'll show you a few photographs of that in a bit. So that sleeps 6 comfortably. And 7 and 8 down here has its own access route and is a slightly more exclusive villa with its own private plunge pool. So I'll also show you photographs of that. This is cottage number 2, which is actually one of my favorites. It faces the sunrise. It has the maze across Lewa and out into the north. And we are making a few improvements on our cottages at the moment, and a few being rethatched. So I'll share photographs of those as soon as they're finished. This is the kind of central area of family cottage 5 and 6. So there is a twin room on the left and a double room on the right. So families can be slightly more private if they want to. They can have their lunches and dinners and breakfasts here with all of the other guests. This is the double room on the right-hand side, which has stairs down in the middle of the picture. They lead to this children's room. So we usually say that this is suitable for anybody under the age of 12 because it does share its own main entrance and its own bathroom with the double rooms. Great for parents who don't necessarily want their children to be out the other side of the lodge. This is family cottage 7 and 8. It's the furthest down the bottom of the hill, so closest to the dam, most private. It's got this private dining area with, again, they can have all of their meals here if they don't really. It's great for a family who can't quite stretch to a full private house option, but do want to be slightly more exclusive on their safari. So it's got a twin room upstairs, which has a fireplace, lovely ensuite bathroom with a large bath and amazing views. And then downstairs, it has this big double room, which opens out onto a private plunge pool, which is really lovely. There are very often elephants that swim down in the dam, so kind of swimming at the same time as elephants is a really nice experience. The lodge also has its own pool for all of the guests. It's where the majority of our guests spend the heat of the day. Lunch is served quite nearby the pool. And in terms of activities, as well as the traditional day and night game drives, bush walks, bush dinners, we've got a wide range of unique activities which are available because we're on a private conservancy. So as some of you may know, we are home to the original Pride Rock. We had the first Disney film crew visit Borana in the early 80s, and they took inspiration from this rock for the original animation movie. And then we had the Disney film crew come back again in 2017 ahead of the most recent Lion King movie, which was really great fun. So we've got 2 sets of stables. We've got one, which are the Borana stables, which are based at our headquarters. They are mostly thoroughbred horses, which can do anything from a morning ride to a 7-day riding safari with fly time in between, which can be organised through the lodge as well. And then we've also got the Ngarandari stables, which are on the border with Lewa, and they are homebred horses and ponies, and they are suitable for children. I mean, we've taken children as young as 2, and we've also taken adults who have never been on a horse before, and you know, riding into buffalo or riding up close to giraffe is an amazing experience for your first time on a horse. So this is Wait a Bit Farm, which is where the majority of our fruit and vegetables and beef and milk and cream come from. This also gives a lot of the rations for our general staff and our anti-poaching team. So it's a great thing for guests who are vaguely interested in where their food comes from, and really interesting for children as well. So it's a lovely thing to do in the heat of the day if you've got families. Keeps your children entertained. So this is, all of these activities are included in our rate. We also offer what we call behind the scenes of conservation activities, which give people an insight into how the Conservancy is run. So the way our anti-poaching team works is that we've got an unarmed part and an armed part of our anti-poaching team. So the unarmed part set out each morning to track both the black and white rhino, which are on Borana Conservancy, on foot. So guests can join them on this exercise, and they head out before breakfast, meet with 2 unarmed rangers and 1 armed ranger, and they then walk into rhino with the aim to identify them. Once they've identified them, they'll be given a short history, whether they're male or female, if they're in the right territory, how many calves they've had, and they then walk out of that rhino again and track other rhino which are in the same territory. So we usually don't let children under the age of 12 join in on this, but we can organise bushwalks for young children where they don't approach big game quite this close. This is a really authentic experience. Our rangers track these rhino every morning regardless of guests joining in. So it's a really kind of nice insight into how the Conservancy is run and how we keep our wildlife safe. So as we're on a private conservancy, as I said, there's much more freedom when people are on safari. What we'd like to recommend is, if guests aren't doing scheduled flights, that they visit the Mara first so that they can then get their game drive fix out of the way in the beginning of this safari. So this allows them time to ride a horse, get on a mountain bike, go for a walk, spend time with our rangers. They can do all of this without feeling the need to tick off any of their wildlife sightings. But having said this, as I mentioned before, we've got amazing wildlife on Borana at the moment. We've got a huge number of rhino, huge number of elephant, a pride of 29 lion, cheetah, buffalo, and lots more. So there are lots of activities which I haven't had time to mention, and lots of smaller conservation efforts which I haven't mentioned either. So if you'd like more information, as Sally said, let me know. I can send you lots more info directly. And just to finish, I'd like to quickly remind you all that all of the proceeds from Borana Lodge are invested into the core operational costs of Borana Conservancy. So a stay at Borana Lodge acts as a direct contribution to safeguarding the future of wildlife, its habitat, and building local livelihoods in our part of northern Kenya. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Eloise. That was a great presentation. If anyone has any questions, please type them into the box, which should be on your screen, not the chat box, it's the other one that says Q&A, and I'll then field those to Eloise.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a question from Corinne. How do the guests get to Borana?
So there are scheduled flights which go into Lewa Wildlife Conservancy from Nairobi, and that is about an hour and a half drive. Otherwise, you can do drive from the lodge. We can also organise road transfers from Nairobi or Nanyuki, but we usually recommend flying so that you're not spending an entire day travelling.
Sorry, Eloise, could you just repeat the second part after the transfer from Lewa? I didn't quite catch that.
Sorry, so you can fly into Lewa, which is from Nanyuki, which is about an hour and a half game drive across Lewa and Borana, or you can do charter flights into the Borana airstrip, which is about 10 minutes from the lodge, or we can organise road transfers from Nanyuki and Nairobi, but we usually recommend flying so that people aren't spending a whole day travelling.
Okay, thanks. The next question is from Lucy, who says, what is the age limit on cycling?
So we don't really have an age limit on cycling. If we've got young children who want to join in, we've got a smaller bicycle, which is usually for children from kind of 8 to 10. If you've got a smaller or a larger child, then obviously that depends on what bike they can get on. But if children want to join in, then we're very happy having bike trips out in open plains rather than down in valleys.
Thanks, Eloise. We'll just wait to see if a few more questions will come through. Okay, one from Natalie. Do you have any rooms that are easier to access by older or disabled people, i.e. getting to and from the main mess area?
Yeah, so we have cottage number 3, free to the main mess and to the pool, and we can actually drive a car down close to this cottage as well, so guests can be picked up for their game drives from basically just outside their door.
Thank you. A question from Brigitte. Who are the typical guests that tend to visit Borana?
Wow, we get a huge mix of guests. We lots of honeymoon couples, young families. We also get multi-generational families. yeah, it really depends. We've had an amazingly diverse, busy season this year, which is really great. So I don't really know how to answer that question.
Thank you. Nothing else at the moment. Maybe Brigitte will come back if she's more specific about the key source markets that they come from, perhaps. Oh, and in the meantime, another question from Natalie. Can you cope with kosher food requests?
Yes, we definitely can. All of our meat is kosher anyway. So yeah, we're very happy dealing with all kinds of dietary requests.
Thanks. Another question from Lucy. What is the recommended length of stay?
Nothing less than 3 nights. We usually recommend 4 or 5, but 3 nights really is a minimum because there's so much to do that, you know, if you're only there for 2 nights, then it's really one full most of the conservancy.
Okay, thank you. We don't seem to have any more questions. Oh, there is one more. Brigitte, how far in advance should one plan to book for exclusive use?
This very much depends on time of year. We're already full for Christmas next year. So it, you know, if you want to book exclusive use for high season, then I would recommend about a year in advance. But if you want to book exclusive use in our shoulder seasons, I mean, September, October is a lovely time of year. April, end of May, beginning of June, either before or after our short rains, and then you can kind of do 6 months in advance.
Perfect, thank you. If that is all the questions we have for now, I think we'll end the webinar there. And if anyone has any afterwards, you can feel free to pop Eloise a message. Her email address is on the screen, and I'll also include it in the presentation that's sent out to everyone afterwards. So otherwise, thank you so much, Eloise. And if anyone has not tuned into the webinar for next week, Eloise will be presenting on Lengishu, which is also based on Borana. So it might be nice to listen to that one too. The details are on the Atta website on the events page. Thanks, Eloise, and thank you everyone so much for joining us.
Great, thank you very much.